Good morning. I hope everyone's well. I'm just gonna wait for everyone to join, and then we are going to be chatting this morning with the wonderful Nicholas Robinson. So hopefully he will check in, and we will start our little chat. I hope everyone's doing well. The weather in Dublin, anyway, this morning is gorgeous. There's lots of excitement going on in the Schoolhouse for Art as well. They're continuing to develop or build the Disney set for the Enchanted 2 movie. So there's lots of bustle of activity going on around there. So let me see, can I get Dave or Nick to join in? Let me see. Nick has been part of the team of tutors here in the Schoolhouse for Art for the last number of years. We're delighted to have him. He's such an incredible tutor, but like his work absolutely astounds us. We are there he is. Hi Nick. So hopefully you've gotten a little request to join, and we'll have our little chat. So yeah, there's lots of excitement around the Schoolhouse at the moment and in Enniskerry in general. So I think for the next 3 months they're building the Disney set for Enchanted 2, and really there's only going to be actually 6 days of actual filming. But Nick, I think it says that you've joined, but I can't see your lovely face. So let's see, I'll invite you again. You should have gotten a little link to say that I've requested for you to join in. And here we go. There you are.
Hi.
Hey, Nick.
How are you getting on?
I'm great. How are you?
Great. Good, thanks. Yeah, got it working there. I've never done this before, so
I know.
new experience.
I know. Well, this is the whole age of lockdown, isn't it? Where we just talk to each other, and we're so used to, we have to see our own faces the whole time because we're chatting into these devices. But how are you keeping
Exactly.
this morning?
I'm well, thanks. Lovely day, lovely day. I opened the skylight, so it's a bit brighter than it was when we were talking yesterday. So
Yeah, it does. It seems a lot
thanks for
brighter.
inviting me on. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. I know you've been a treasured member of the team of tutors that we have in the Schoolhouse for the last number of years. And yeah, I think as a lot of us are, we're absolutely amazed by the work that you produce. You have incredible realism in the work that you do. Your attention to detail is amazing, and you capture the emotion of your sitters so well, or the subject so well. So I guess what I was hoping to maybe chat to you this morning about is your kind of timeline of art. And did you always know you were going to, did you know you had this talent in you? Because you've traveled, like from what I've read and from what I know about you, you live in Wicklow and you were born in Wicklow, but you did a lot of traveling with your art to learn. And
That's very kind of you. Thanks very much for saying so, and I'm glad you like it. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I used to draw all the time as a child, and I was encouraged by my parents, and I was very lucky in that. And they also, they helped me all the way through school because I just always was drawing all the time. And I also read comics, and then when I was a bit older, I started getting interested in painting. But it was my parents that encouraged me to do it, and they were the ones who really who kind of opened my eyes to the possibility of doing art. Without them, it may not have happened. So I was extremely lucky in that regard. And I went to a boys' school, and drawing pictures was a way to get a reaction.
okay.
I don't know if it's in the girls' school, but getting a reaction from your peers or your mates was extremely important. And used to get a reaction with drawings. So that's really where it came from. And I loved art as well. I loved looking at art. initially when I wanted to go to art college, I wanted to study art history and art. There was a course at the time where it was in equal measure, but that's how interested I was in art history back then. So I was lucky, Lana. That's really what I'm trying to say. I
Well,
still am. So
yeah. Well, your parents must have seen a talent in you from early on then, that because art can't, it's not an easy path to follow, and it's not we say it all the time, it's not the most straightforward sort of career path or the most obvious choice. So they must have seen how talented you were from such a young age.
I don't. Well, I don't know quite how to react to all the compliments, but I was drawing all the time. Definitely, whether it was any good or not is a matter of, or whether it meant anything or not is another thing. But I just used to draw everything all the time.
Yeah.
And destroy the school books and other people's books, and just it was a constant thing. It was just a natural thing to do for me, and that's what. And as I say, then I was encouraged in it. So,
And
but yeah, I've been lucky more than anything. I think in the encouragement I got and in the training I got and so on. I'm sure there's lots of people who had similar experiences but were either discouraged or couldn't get access to quality education. So it's a
yeah.
question of good fortune.
And did you decide that kind of fine art, because like while a lot of art is very subjective to the viewer and how they see it, but there's no denying the realism in your work, and that like it's incredibly lifelike. So did you know that was going to be your style? And
No, I always wanted to paint figuratively or narratively as I understood it, and I didn't paint in that style at all. But at the risk of mentioning art college, I didn't have a positive experience with the education in art college. I did with the social aspect of it and the kind of the personal, like student life and that. But in terms of education, I find it I found it very limiting.
Okay.
And I had given up. And I went away to. I had essentially given up art or stopped doing it because like most people, as you would know from the Schoolhouse, there's an awful lot of people who do art when they're younger. They go to art college, and they're really into it. But then, they have to get jobs, they have families, and so on. And it just doesn't. It's really difficult to maintain any kind of artistic practice in the long run. And that was my case too. But I was also discouraged, I felt, and I didn't want to do it anymore. But then in 2009, my brother died, and I went back to art college, and I met an artist called Garode Hayes, and those three things coincided in 2009.
Wow.
And I decided I was going to go and do art again, and going back to art college convinced me that I wanted to go somewhere where there was what I perceived to be a more thorough training, or a more objective kind of training, and that's what Garode Hayes introduced me to.
And is that when you went to Sweden? Was that?
Yeah. Yeah, so I went off to Sweden, and they draw from life all day, every day.
Wow.
And they never really ask you your opinion, which was heaven.
Yeah.
You just work from life. For me, it was, I just remember in art college when tutors were talking to me, and they were talking, and I was just thinking in my head, what am I going to say when they're finished talking? That was, what do they want me to say? It was like, in my mind, it was guesswork. What do they want to hear?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when I went to Sweden, I would draw from life, and the tutors would look at my work and talk about the work, and they never really asked me anything about politics or philosophy or these things. It was just, all about the work, not about the person.
That's very,
And that
it's the Irish in us. Sorry, I interrupted you. It's the Irish in us as well, where we try and, fill the silences, or try and think we have something to say. I can imagine how going to the Nordics, where silence is okay and it's embraced,
right, right.
versus in
maybe actually, a lot of them were American. I mean, it
oh,
was really a different. It wasn't that they weren't talking, or that they weren't. You couldn't. It wasn't that I wasn't talking,
mhm.
which you won't find hard to believe. It's just that they talked about what you were doing.
Yeah,
They talked about tangible results that you had created on your canvas or on your paper, as opposed to just things which, especially when I was younger, I mean, I didn't really appreciate possibly what they were trying to talk about, but it all seemed so amorphous and just there was nothing concrete about any of it.
yeah,
Maybe there shouldn't have been. It was hugely refreshing when I went there, and they were like, "This, this line is more successful than this one," as opposed to,
mm.
"What's your opinion
Some
on the economic problems in Africa?" This kind of sort of pseudo politics. Anyway, there was a big contrast, and I was lucky enough to go and experience that. Again, it was just good fortune.
Yeah, but also I can see like that, with art, you don't want the superfluous sort of information about your piece or what anybody thinks about it. But when you're learning, you want to know, okay, tell me how to, why something isn't working out, or how I can improve on that. And is that what you felt was missing in say the Irish colleges, or the experience?
It was more to do with the
Next question.
there. I mean, it's a personal thing, but for me, I just felt like that there were things that I could readily identify that I was learning, as opposed to just going through a system whereby you kind of you rise through the ranks of a kind of a. It's almost like a religion. I don't want to get into it too much, but it's almost like a religion in art college, whereby you become more and more of a believer almost.
Okay.
As opposed to a system where, and I appreciate the system that I went in Sweden may have limits or may not be for everybody, but there was tangible differences.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can do this, and before I couldn't.
Sure.
Whereas in art college, you're gradually moving from a sort of a, you're moving up through a hierarchy of I mean, as I see it, it would be almost like of religion or something. But
okay.
As I said, this is my personal experience, and I'm sure there are lots of other people who've benefited greatly from art college.
And I see there's a question there from someone from one of our viewers, that they're asking whereabouts in Sweden. So it was the Florence Arts Academy.
Yeah, it's Göteborg, Gothenburg, on the west coast.
Wow.
So it's if you look at a map, it's directly north from Copenhagen.
Okay.
But it's in a place called Malm. It's in it was outside Gothenburg.
Okay.
Beautiful. Yeah. So I'd never been to Sweden before, so that was all a new experience too. So.
Yeah, and did you travel then to Bangkok as well, just to further your
I used to live there.
Oh yeah, of course.
When was it? In the what would you call it? In the 2000s, during the George Bush Iraq War, all that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I lived there and went to college there and did boxing there. So that was that. That was another era. But
because that's where you met your wife. Is that right?
Yeah. I was actually going to be a school teacher, and that's why I went back to NCAD to get the postgraduate qualification, which I did get. but that was and I did a degree in Bangkok as well in relation to education. But yeah, as I say, these other three occurrences transpired, and I left that behind, and so.
Yeah, well, and I'm sorry about your brother. That's an incredibly tragic event.
Um, yeah, I think, obviously, yeah, of course, personally, but I think anyone could appreciate that these kinds of things, when they happen, are uh, life goes on, and you look at your own life in a different way than you might. It helps you make choices in your own life,
Yeah,
obviously.
of
So
course. Yeah, I know my dad, well, Neil would say the same when his auntie um, was like, she was passing away, and she said, make sure that you leave behind in this world what you want. And I think that's what kind of spurred him to go down the artistic avenue, where he had been working very corporately beforehand. Um, so yeah,
yeah,
it's different. It's kind of makes you look at perspective and what's important to you, and where your values lie.
yeah, it highlights the choices you have, for sure. I mean, but and that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
But I think about opportunity.
Yeah,
A
I
lot of
think that's what, again, kind of where Neil was at. He didn't he didn't have a good experience in school at all. So, like, you maybe didn't really think much of the education system here, and then how to get into college when school hadn't gone very well. Was a
mm,
tough choice. So that's, again, I kind of where the Schoolhouse for Art came into play. So he kind of brought art college to him, and see, I know Neil kind of regularly attends your class, because he absolutely, like, worships, learning from you and watching how you work and developing his
right.
work. Again, I'm giving
Yeah.
compliments, but
Oh, that's very kind. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he told me, or he shared with me a bit about why he changed his profession, I guess, and the impetus for setting up the schoolhouse.
mhm.
Yeah, and a lot of it's, well, yeah, I don't
We want to get
necessarily
there.
have to comment on that, other than uh,
I think what's come out of
well,
it is
I was
positive.
talking to him yesterday. He's really created something which is, which, in my opinion, I was saying it yesterday. It just shows the kind of leadership that is needed, I would say.
Hmm.
And he's done it. I mean, it takes. For me, I had all this momentum behind me in this teaching career, and then to stop it and then to do something else, you're effectively going back to zero.
Hmm.
And trying to sort of turn the boat around, it's a huge effort.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's to be not to be not to be it's no small achievement. So
No.
I don't want to give him a head though, but it is good to see. It is good to see that kind of leadership that we need in the art world, at least in my.
Well, I definitely appreciate that statement. And then your classes that you run in the Schoolhouse, I mean, I find it fascinating that from a blank canvas, you can go from a blank canvas to an incredibly realistic portrait of the sitter in front of you, and you break it down into really well, not easy steps, but understandable steps, that as you progress with your abilities, the students are, they really do progress under your instruction. So do you find it easy yourself, I guess, from all of your training in terms of how to teach, and then your training behind your own discipline, you're able to break it down so people can follow along? Do you find that, like, does it come naturally to you now in terms of the steps to create your pieces?
Um, when the part of the thing that, or part of part of going through a system like I did, whereby you're trying to do the same thing effectively every day for whatever it was, 3.5 years. And you think, and from the outset, you think, oh, this will be, I'm going to get this down. This is going to be no problem in a few years' time. But what it makes you appreciate is really how difficult something is, and how it doesn't necessarily go away. The difficulty doesn't diminish. You do make progress, but it's always hard. At least my experience. There's other people who maybe just really just nail it. Joachim Eriksson, who taught me, in my opinion, he could just get a result every time and relatively quickly and easily. But I always, for me, it was just, right, it never got easy.
Okay.
I could get a result maybe, but I was never like, oh, this is no problem. And when I see people coming in and they're finding it difficult, I mean, I just know exactly how they feel, or at least that's how I just think I know what, yeah, you want a result and it's not happening, or you're wondering why you got one result when you were aiming for another. And I'm there. I feel like, yeah, absolutely. That's
art.
I say it all the time in the classes, you have to get used to it. It doesn't go away, or at least it hasn't for me.
Yeah.
That feeling of constant.
We've lost him. Are you gone? Are you back? What has happened to poor Nick? Hi, Nick. No, you're okay.
Mid flow there.
Okay, that's what happens. That could have been your canvas in the middle of one of those moments where the word
might improve. But no, I see people trying hard to get what they want done, and finding it difficult, and that's me. So so to that end, your question was about how to break it up. It's really about trying to make it as simple as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean as easy as possible. I mean as simple as possible. Thinking in simple terms.
Yeah.
Simple but meaningful terms. And this is what I was saying about this idea of doing the same thing for 3 years. You think, well, it's not that you learn something new. It's just it kind of goes deeper and deeper and deeper. You learn the same thing, but with much more depth.
Mm-hmm.
My experience, you can go really, really, really far with one idea, as opposed to learning loads and loads and loads of different techniques and just applying them to new things all the time. It's more about, okay, we're going to do this to a very, 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 a high degree, or to a deep level. So.
Yeah, because I had the pleasure of being a sitter for one of your classes, and
no, that's right.
I remember, like, even just listening to the advice that you were giving to the students that were there, in terms of like that, breaking it down into understandable steps, as opposed to them getting overwhelmed about the whole piece. You would give them little areas to kind of focus on, in terms of, be it the tone or the drawing that they'd started with, that you kind of help them come out, I think, the other side of those moments, by kind of standing back and maybe picking one or two areas that they can focus on, to sort of work.
Yeah, it's people get caught up in things, I learned how to drive quite recently, and when you sit behind the wheel, it's just so confusing. There's traffic, but then after a while, once you get to learn the mechanics, you're just doing this. You can concentrate on the most simple task in front of you, whatever it may be. You're just narrowing down all the different things you have to do to the most important one, and doing that, and you're essentially ignoring things.
Yeah.
At least
yes.
I see it.
Yeah. And are you looking forward to getting back to teaching? Sorry, you were going to say something there.
No. Oh yeah. Oh, it's great. Yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, it's May, isn't it? I should
Yeah.
know the date.
So
It's
May 5th, I hope you're coming back.
yeah,
Yeah, we're getting so it'll be a portrait with a sitter. So portrait,
yeah, yeah, great.
yeah, 5th
Um,
of May for sitter.
yeah. I mean, I was saying to you yesterday, it's a huge privilege to be able to come in and you know, if people find it helpful, it's fantastic. You know, that's absolutely great.
Mm.
If people to come along and they find what I have to offer is useful, that's a massive privilege. I'm not trying to. I really mean that. It's you know, it's great.
Well,
It's great.
you can see that in the way that you teach. You know, you're very, you know, you're very generous in how you teach, and you know, you do seem to enjoy what you're doing.
Well, you know, again, if you've ever paid for a class,
Mhm.
which, you know, whenever, and then you go along and you feel like you're not getting value out of it, it's, you know, I don't know, you pay for something and then you turn up and, you know, it's not what you wanted, or they're not, you know, the people are not particularly helpful, or it's too vague, you know. I've sat in hundreds and hundreds of lectures in college and in various things, and there are very few where the person really comes in and says, right, this is the idea, and when, you know, at the end of today we're going to understand this idea specifically, and you know, you're going to go away with that. A lot of it's filling time, and I don't want to get, but you know, a lot of you know, filling curriculum and tick box
Yeah.
tasks and everything. That frustrated me whenever I was in schools.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
think we have some viewers agreeing exactly with that statement, that there's nothing worse than that sort of tedium.
endless kind of slideshows, and you know, well, we've got 2 hours. How are we going to fill it? It's like, okay, here's the idea, which I feel has substance,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to get into that and nothing else. And then at the end of the day, we're gonna understand that hopefully better than, to some degree. We're going to understand that better, which is what I feel in Sweden. It was like, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to ignore everything else, and it was enough, you know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's
But again,
it's enough to do at that time.
yeah, and just the practice of it, and you know, getting more confident by practicing and looking at your, like a student just commented there that you can help them focus on things that need focusing, where they said they you'd be going around the different portraits that the students are doing, and make a comment like, look at the chin that you're working on and look at your model's chin and see if they're matching up. So even just your eye for the detail and helping your students see that is invaluable.
Yeah, well, the person has to be able to, like, one of the things that you need is to be able to reflect yourself critically, or to be critical of your own work, and you know, to be highly critical of your own work. At least that's what I experienced. You start thinking, oh, everything I'm doing is great, and then if you're instructed, or if somebody then critiques you with meaning, and you can see, actually, that's not what I thought it was, or
Mm-hmm.
you know, that is successful, and that is on to be give you what you want is to be able to critique yourself, to be critical yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm looking at my own work, I'm thinking about what Joachim would say,
Oh,
the person who taught me.
yes, yeah, in Sweden.
And what would he say about this? And you know, obviously it's, or I think of other artists that I like. You know, how does this reflect? What would they say?
Okay.
You know, I often, you know, you kind of hear those voices in your head when you're working yourself, of somebody you admire, or in this case, Joachim Eriksson would have had things to say, and I can kind of feel like, oh, I'm cutting a corner here that he would have caught me on.
Okay.
It's like it's almost like a conscience in a way, but you know.
Well, it stands to
But
you. But then again,
sorry,
it stands to you. Like your work is incredible, but it is
have
like
that
that inner.
critical faculty. I think
Sorry.
you have to have that critical faculty yourself. It's no good if somebody else tells you if something is good or bad. If oh, well, I don't like this or I don't like that. You have to be able to understand. But according to the principle that I understand,
Hmm.
this is successful or unsuccessful. That's my feeling anyway.
That's a helpful critic to have, though, as opposed to just the self-berating, like this isn't good work, but if you have something measurable to check
Yeah, well,
against, yeah.
that'd be my feeling.
Hmm.
That'd be my feeling.
Well, we're looking forward to having you back and starting your next block of classes in May. Are you working on any art yourself at the moment? You working on a few people?
Yeah, I've got a show coming up in November,
Oh, brilliant.
yeah, it was supposed to be on last November, but it got cancelled. Well, yeah, obviously it got cancelled. So that's in Bray, and it's going to be still lives and casts.
Oh, fantastic. Wow.
So it's about 7 months, 8 months time, something like that.
Yeah.
And there's the open submission things are coming up too.
Okay.
They'll probably put into those.
Brilliant.
But that's the plan. So
Great. Well, I'm going to
uh,
let you get back. I can see you have your palette knife in your hand.
yeah,
Are you ready to? Are you ready to? Are you having a day of getting?
today's my work day. Yeah, today's the day I get to work.
Oh,
So
great. Well, don't let me take any more of your time. Thanks so much for having the chat with us this morning. I know
no,
lots of
it's really
people.
kind of you to ask, and I'm very happy to be able to talk. And I hope that the schoolhouse can open fully
Yeah. Forward to that.
sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we look forward to
we'll
that
see.
too.
We'll see. Sorry.
Thankfully the online classes have kept us going, but we really miss all the students coming in and out and getting our work done.
Thanks to yourself and Neil. I mean,
Well,
uh, uh, he did Trojan work and a huge expense.
yeah, look, we're still here, so
Apart from he put his money where his mouth is, and bought all the gear and spent all that money to to accommodate the restrictions. So I mean that's a commitment.
well, he's definitely that. We want to keep this business going, and then having the likes of
Yeah,
yourselves and tutors behind us.
it's impressive. It's impressive.
Thank
A lot
you.
of people would have folded.
No,
Really.
well, thank you.
I mean, I think so.
We have great tutors like you guys backing us up as well. So thanks for that.
I just have to turn up. Neil will be disgusted to hear that. I just have to turn up. I mean, I don't.
No, you bring
But
your
anyway,
talent. You bring your talent. So we'll be chatting again soon, I'm sure. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. And I know the video will be rewatched again. So Nick, thanks a million. Enjoy the rest of your day and get
thank
some.
you, Lana. Thanks. Cheerio.
Thanks.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye. Bye.